Welcome to the Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. My name is Emma and I'll be your host for today's episode. Perth is one of the most isolated capital cities in the world. Growing up here in Western Australia, bands didn't come to WA. In fact, we kind of joked that nothing ever came to WA. And as we've gotten older, it's quite exciting that things don't come to WA because apparently pandemics don't come here either. So in Western Australia, we haven't exactly been impacted by the pandemic in the same way that other countries or even other cities have been. And so we've only seen what the pandemic looks like through watching it on the news or watching it through social media. And a few of the people I was speaking to have been really interested in what the reality of that was like. So today I'm joined by an amazing woman. Charlotte works in community services. She's a community services manager working with dementia and support services. She's studying counselling and psychotherapy. And I won't hold it against her, but she's a cat lover. Charlotte lives in Nottingham in the north of England with her fiancé, who should now be her husband, and her two cats, Ed and Loki, Maine Coons. So thanks for joining me today, Charlotte.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so how is everything going over in the UK now?
Well, we're all, I guess we're all in a bit of a party stage at the minute because things slightly, and I think we're probably in that stage now where we're taking advantage of a few more freedoms while it lasts, because obviously we don't know what's going to happen with the new Delta variant, and we're not sure what's going to happen. Obviously everything was meant to be easing from the 21st of June, but now it's obviously all in question. So it's nice. So all of our pubs and restaurants and, hospitality and leisure and everything's starting to reopen now. So that's really nice.
Oh, exciting. So can you give us a rough idea around, I guess, kind of the timeline that you've had? So, when did things start closing down and how long were you in lockdown, and what did lockdown actually look like for you?
So I was sent home from work. I was working in a hospital and I was sent home, I think it was the 17th of March last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's how long I've been working from home. So that's when things started to get really bad and it was looking like we was going to be going into a national lockdown. And I think it was only about a week later that we went into national lockdown. So that meant that everyone had to work from home. We wasn't allowed to mix households. Everything was closed. So apart from things like essential shops or, pharmacies. And that was it, basically. We was told to just stay in. We was allowed to go out and exercise once a day. And that was it really. I'd been working from home for the whole of the pandemic, but then my partner Ash, he had, I think probably maybe 4 weeks part working from home, but he's been in the rest of the time because he's classed as a key worker because his company makes hand sanitizer. So that was the only reason he was allowed in.
Do you think that's made it easier for you that you haven't actually been locked in the same house together for 14, 15 months, however many months it is?
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Yeah. I was thinking, do you think it would be harder because you're literally isolated and at home by yourself? Actually, no. I think definitely having being locked in the same house with your partner, I'm not sure I'd make it through.
No, that would be so hard. I don't know how people have done it.
Yeah. So when you're saying that you couldn't, you were limited to just your household, so you couldn't see any of your family?
No. So in theory, I wasn't allowed to see my mum and dad or my brothers or, anyone really. It was, if you had a caring role for someone, you could go and drop off supplies. But again, you wasn't supposed to be going in the house. So my mum and dad were not told to shield. Do you have shielding here?
No.
Okay, so shielding was for people who were older or who had disabilities, and they was basically told they needed to stay, and so they wasn't allowed to go to the shops or anything like that either.
Oh, wow.
So my mum and dad didn't come under that category, but they are slightly vulnerable because of health conditions. So I was able to go once a week and drop shopping off, but it was literally dropping it off at the doorstep and then standing back and having, a few minutes conversation with them, which is okay in summer, but when it started in March and it's absolutely freezing and
or snowing,
it's absolutely pouring down with rain, you don't tend to want to do so much.
You don't want to hang around out the front and have a chat for half an hour in the sleet.
No, exactly. Oh. So it was very, very limited contact with everyone.
Wow, that's I sort of can't get my head around the idea of just having to drop shopping at the door and then, standing. How close were you allowed to get to them?
I mean,
in theory,
yeah. Who knows? It changes all the time. I think 2 meter distance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. And how did you go doing your job working from home?
So it was all done via telephone and email. And as part of the work I was doing, they set up a welfare service. So basically it was to get food, medication and welfare checks to people across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. So I was part of the allocations team where we'd be allocating service users to volunteers who'd signed up to go and fetch the shopping and things like that. Because we was absolutely inundated because obviously there was all these people who was told, with such short notice that actually they shouldn't be going out anymore.
Yeah.
It was too hard.
And because you were supporting elderly people, and you were doing that through telephone and online services, there must have been logistical issues with that, with older people perhaps struggling with, we had nothing compared to what you do, but, I was saying before we came on air that I've really struggled with the number of Zoom meetings. I really can't imagine somebody in their 80s who's going to be particularly au fait with connecting to Zoom and having their appointments that way.
Yeah, no, it was something that we could offer, Zoom and Teams meetings, but obviously, a lot of older people were unable to access that. So it literally was just telephone or speaking to families.
Yeah. And did you have a lot of volunteers who signed up to help out?
Yeah, we did. We had hundreds of volunteers, so that was really good. I
bet they did. Everyone's got their hand up. Please take me. I want to get out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah, sadly, because I was part of the allocations, I wasn't able to go out and do the shopping myself, although we did sign up for a few people on the street, so that was nice. That was like my weekly outing to the supermarket.
Oh, gosh. Now, speaking of weekly outings to the supermarket, did you have a toilet paper shortage?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
See, we can bond over these things.
Because obviously Italy was hit really hard first. We, for some reason, had because of obviously that, we had a shortage of pasta as well. So we couldn't get pasta, we couldn't get tinned tomatoes, and we couldn't get toilet paper. And there was actual fights. I didn't see any, but it was on the news that there was actual fights of people fighting over things in the shop, and they had to put restrictions on how many things you were allowed to take, which again was really difficult when you was doing shopping for multiple people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had something similar probably around the same time last year. I have no idea why, but one of the politicians said something like, make sure you've got enough food and toilet paper in the house for 2 weeks. I'm not sure how much toilet paper people thought they were going to need for 2 weeks, but, the next day all the shelves were empty. And similarly, we didn't have any rice or pasta, and, those shelves were empty for quite some time. But our youngest child, she thinks that it's a race to the end of the toilet paper roll. So we were rationing. We're kind of going, you can have 3 sheets.
That you are.
That's it. You're limited, and once a day you can have a couple of extras. So, yeah, fun times. But yes,
And I did have to laugh because I was adamant that I wasn't going to be one of these people who stocked up, and Ash kept saying to me, you really need to go out and start getting some tin stuffs. He was acting like it was the zombie apocalypse. He'd got me this list. I mean, I don't know why he couldn't go to the supermarket to fetch all these things.
He didn't want to be the one that was going to be lynched for buying all the tin stuff.
Like, oh, we'll send Charlotte, it'll be fine. She'll be okay. But eventually I did give in, and I went and got his shopping list. And you'll be surprised to know we've still not eaten the tinned fruit or, 5, I don't know, boxes of passata, all these things that are so random that I was like, we don't eat these normally. Why am I going out and buying them now?
Just in case there's a zombie apocalypse, you never know. You can throw the cans at them. Yeah, we've
got some very random items left in the cupboard.
The pantry. We had a road trip. My husband and I, we were running an event down in Albany, which is 4 hours south of here. And at the time, we were down to one roll of toilet paper at home, but I was still like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be one of those people. But when we were down to the last roll, I was starting to get a bit desperate. And there was none in the shops here. I was like, I'm going to have to start stealing it from work. And then we went down to Albany, and I called my husband because I had to quickly pop to the shops, and I called him and said, they've just brought out a carton of toilet paper. And he goes, just buy it all. We'll give one to everyone who's come to the event. I'm like, hell no. I'm not risking being lynched for toilet paper. Buying it for us. Tell them they can come down and get it.
You buying it all and keeping it for yourself.
That's it. Well, we had people here who were selling it for, $500 for a 24 pack of toilet paper. So,
No, really?
Yep, enterprising, hey. So you said that you weren't allowed to go and visit your parents and your brothers and your partner's brothers. You're really quite close to your family. How did you go with that?
Yeah, I think it was really, really difficult, but I think because I got to see them at least once a week, and even if it was just like a brief meeting, it was still better than nothing.
Not at all.
But it was really hard for people like my mum because she lives on her own. So she was literally seeing no one apart from the time when I'd go that once a week. So it was really hard. We did have to my dad got a bit inventive. So he's got quite a long driveway. So when the weather was okay, which again wasn't that often, I'd arrive with the shopping and there'd be some camp chairs at the end of the driveway and a glass with a can of Guinness. So we'd sit and have like a distance drink, which again, shouldn't really have been doing, but it was nice.
Well, you were just dropping shopping off.
Exactly.
Yeah. How are those drink driving laws over there? One can, you're fine, I'm sure.
Well, it was usually if Ash came with me, I'd get him to drive.
Nice, well done. Yeah.
Guinness.
Because, well, that's the thing as well. I'm not suggesting that you drink heavily, but a lot of the UK kind of the social life does involve going to, spending time in pubs and going out for a drink and, going and seeing live music, that kind of thing. For that to have shut down for a year, how did people cope with that?
I think we just got used to it, to be honest. But I say that now, you go out and it is absolutely packed everywhere. It's busier than it ever would have been. It's so hard to find a table. You have to book everywhere first, but then the restaurants and bars are getting, they're having difficulty because they're having people not showing up, so they're losing money. So it's a real shame, but yeah, it's so busy now. But I think for us, it just became something that, yeah, we just got used to it, really. It was so long.
Yeah, it was so long. And obviously Christmas was smack in the middle of that as well. And you had a bit of a reprieve for Christmas, and then it was all a bit uncertain.
Well, it was all a bit odd at Christmas because, so before that, and I can't remember when it was, but it was towards the end of summer, things started to open up again, and we was allowed into places. I think it was you could meet up with 6 people indoors, but hospitality could open again. But then we had a 2 week, I think it was 2 week lockdown just before Christmas, and then the hope was that things for Christmas would be okay and we'd be able to just, carry on as normal. But we went into a tiered system, so different areas of England had different rules. But unfortunately, where we was in the strictest tier. So all pubs and restaurants had closed, and I think it had gone back to again that we wasn't allowed to meet anyone indoors. But if you went over to Cheshire, where my brother lives, they was in a tier down from us, so they was going out for meals and stuff. So they went out on Christmas Day, and then so we did have, I think it was a 3-day break over the Christmas period where we was allowed to meet up with 6 people indoors. But that was it. Nothing was open. It was in people's houses.
I really shouldn't laugh, but I did say that. So you can meet indoor. So you can meet with 6 people, but please try and keep the windows open and put your most vulnerable people closest to the windows or outside if possible. It's literally subarctic conditions, and you want to put the elderly next to an ice cold window or outside if possible.
Yeah. No one wants that, do they? No one wants that.
Or just this idea that, okay, well, we're just going to have this 3-day reprieve, and COVID will know that COVID just needs to hold off for 3 days till after Christmas, and then it can come back again. Yeah.
I mean, I think from speaking to people, what a lot of people did, because the numbers were again getting so high at that point, said, actually it's not worth risking seeing people, or, especially people who were vulnerable. It just wasn't worth it. So a lot of people ended up spending it on their own.
Yeah. And so you obviously did the time. You don't have children, which meant that you didn't have to, work out how you were going to keep them entertained for the whole time. But at the same time, people with children did have the ability to be able to see more people. Is that right? They could have some sort of bubble where they could see somebody else.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how this works, but I think there's a childcare bubble. But I don't think that came in until... So I think in the first lockdown, I don't think that happened. As far as I'm aware, unless you was a key worker, then you could send your kids into schools. But yeah, certainly people can see more people if they've got children, as say, just because there is that support network. But yeah, I have a lot of friends who were homeschooling and trying to work at the same time. And
any of them still sane?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it was very, very hard.
Yeah, we only had it for a few weeks at the start of, or somewhere through last year, and I was like, you know what, we're not even trying to homeschool. Just we're just kind of going to ride it out and see what happens. But yeah, I saw people who were trying to, they're trying to educate and work full time, and it was just a nightmare. So
yeah,
I just gave in, pretty much.
But that's what many people did. I think in the second lockdown, when schools were closed, the most recent one, schools were a bit more prepared and they'd arranged lessons on Zoom, so everything was done virtually. But I think that again had problems in itself, because actually getting children to sit for 7 hours to get through the school day to actually do Zoom lessons when they've got all these distractions around them in the bedrooms and stuff.
It's hard enough to try and get kids to sit still in a classroom, let alone at home.
Yeah, definitely.
A few enterprising kids I saw, managed to work out how to make their little icon for Zoom just look like their face, and then left that up and then wandered off. Figured the teacher's not going to notice. In a class of 28, they're not going to notice that one kid hasn't moved in 3 hours. Yeah, good on them. But in the middle of this, you were supposed to get married.
Yeah, so we were supposed to get married on the 24th of May. We knew think we knew around March that it wasn't going to happen, but you have that hope that, you know, this is all going to go away in the next month or 6 weeks.
We're all just blowing this out of proportion. It's just a flu. Yeah.
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 And it can't possibly go the way that they're saying.
Yeah.
So that all got cancelled. We thought at the time that we might do it towards the end of last year. So I think we'd said around the September time, but again, we didn't book anything in. It just wasn't worth it. And luckily we didn't, because obviously it wouldn't have happened. So we're booked now for the end of August. So it's one of them, really. You still like at this point we're thinking we don't know if it's going to happen or not. In theory it should. At the minute weddings are allowed to go ahead, but you're only allowed 30 guests.
30. So 30?
30. No, 30. Yeah, 30.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just wait and see. As I say, from the 21st of June, everything's supposed to reopen, and you're supposed to allow, you know, unlimited guests, and everything's going back to normal. But I just can't see it happening, really.
It's not looking that way. So how was it? So you were, because you were sort of holding out hope that it was all going to go ahead. How was it for it to sort of not go ahead? How long did you hold out hope before you went, you know what, we're calling it?
I think we called it pretty early, just because it was that uncertainty. So like people booking hotels and arranging transport and things like that, and it just wasn't fair to people, really. We was really worried about people obviously losing money and things like that, which isn't great. Back when everything first started, I mean, everything's a lot better now. I think companies have learned to adjust, and you know, there's cancellation policies and you get full refunds and things. But actually when it first started, no one knew where they stood with anything. So, you know, when people book things and it got cancelled, like holidays and stuff, they didn't know if they'd get the money back, or it might take months and months to get it back. And I know there's still people now who haven't got money back. So I think we wanted to give people some sort of certainty, I guess, actually, that, you know, I think I'm saying now, it just feels like really naive that we thought, oh God, you know, if we book it for next year, like summer next year, everything has got to be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
It can't not be. And I'm saying naively now because I'm looking and thinking we're only a couple of months away, and we're still in the same boat, really.
It's funny, I've been watching some of the older episodes of UK panel shows, and on that they're sort of talking about the lead up to Brexit, and then because, you know, that was the biggest thing, and you know, so after Brexit, will we be able to travel? And we watched something last night, and I looked at my husband and went, well, it appears no, they won't be able to travel. So, you know, because nobody saw this coming.
No. And I think even when it was here, you still couldn't comprehend the scale of it or have that understanding of how it was going to impact our lives, really. And to say now we're still here this far down the line, you know, what is it, a year and 5 months or whatever.
And you're still working from home.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be working from home permanently, actually. That was a decision the company decided to make. But a lot of people who will be going back into the office are still working from home.
Yeah.
And there's no date really yet on when it's going to return. I think what people don't want to happen, and what seems to have happened so many times now, is that we've gone back to a little bit of normality and things have started to open up again, and they've put things in workplaces to get people back. And then in a matter of weeks or, you know, a couple of months, we're back to square one again. And we're back, you know, where the numbers are rising and it's going, right, okay, if we don't do something, we're going to end up in another lockdown. So I think, as I say, companies just don't want to make any big decisions until they know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, and nobody wants to be the one that's responsible for the next, nobody wants to have case zero at their workplace or, the event that they've put on and that kind of thing. I think people are really quite cautious about, they say no publicity is bad publicity. Oh, I kind of think maybe there is some bad publicity around this.
Yeah. And some people just don't, some companies just don't have the means to put things in place to open safely. So, they can't social distance.
And so you are still socially distancing over there? So it sounds as though the pubs are really quite full. How are they maintaining that?
Well, it's supposed to be social distancing. It isn't really happening.
Yeah, okay, so same as here then.
Well, we have to wear a face mask. So when you go in somewhere, you wear a face mask till you sat down. Any indoor buildings, you have to have a face covering. Same with the supermarkets and things like that. But actually, still, it's so hard to social distance.
Yeah. How are you coping with the face masks?
It's okay in winter. It's actually quite nice.
Yeah.
I was actually quite liking it. Even when I could take it off, I was like, oh no, I'll keep this on. It's keeping me quite warm. But in summer, it's horrible. It's really horrible. I can't say anything because I very rarely have to wear them apart from, say, going to a supermarket or something. But for some people, like one of my friends, she works in the hospital and she wears it all day.
Oh gosh.
And the hospitals are really hot.
Yeah. I couldn't.
No, it's not nice. I mean, I did get a bit of a taster for it, really, because we went back to university face to face a couple of weeks ago, and all day we had to sit in our face mask then, unless we was eating and drinking.
Oh wow! And were you So we had a very short amount of time where we had to wear face masks over here, and you had to wear it was like 2 weeks, but we had to wear them when we were in the office, and it was a bit ridiculous. So if you were the only person in your office, you still had to wear a face mask. Like, the only person I'm likely to be infecting is my plants. So I reckon I'm probably okay. But, we ended up having our therapist working from home because you can't talk for 7.5 hours in a face mask. So how did you cope with that at uni?
It was really, really difficult, especially because we're doing things like skills practice. So we're doing practice counselling sessions. That are being assessed by the tutor. So actually doing a counselling session in a face mask, it's not very relational.
Well, no, and there's a lot of non-verbal signs that you're not able to pick up on because half your person's face is covered.
Yeah, really difficult.
Yeah, exceptionally difficult.
But it was still a bit of a, I suppose now it's, the mentality is, oh, well, at least we're back.
Yeah. Not trying to do it via Zoom and I'm actually in the same room as a person.
Yeah, it's a small price to pay. And we was just all happy to be back because, again, I've not been back into university since the beginning of March.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. And so doing all of that via Zoom and, all day for 3 days, oh, yuck. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, even so I'm on placement at the minute with a bereavement counselling centre. And all of that has been online. So all of my sessions.
Oh, wow.
Have been on Zoom or telephone. We just started I think I started 2 weeks ago going back to seeing people face to face at the centre.
Well, as somebody who runs a mental health service, can I just say that if you can do your placement and you can do effective counselling over the phone or via telehealth, when you go and do it face to face, you're going to absolutely ace it. So it is so much harder to do via telephone when you have to listen so much harder because you're missing out on so many of those cues. To do it via Zoom or telehealth, I take my hat off to you. So in person, you're going to absolutely rock.
Thank you.
So now just to confirm, because you're planning to get married, since you have been in lockdown, you do actually still want to get married?
Yes. Probably only because we've not spent, 24 hours with each other.
That's it. I wonder how it would be if you had been in the same house for 15 months without any reprieve. Perhaps he wouldn't have been driving you to your dad's house to drop off shopping.
No, I think that would have been a nice break.
Yeah. But you celebrated what would have been your wedding day last year.
Yeah, so it was quite nice actually. So our family set up a Zoom party,
Yeah.
and they had the background as the wedding venue that we should have been in. So that was
Oh,
quite nice. And we had drinks and yeah, played a quiz and things like that. And then me and Ash just we went for a nice walk. It was a really nice day actually, and went for a picnic and ate lots of nice things. And yeah,
yeah.
it was good.
Oh, beautiful. And so now you spoke before about the kids who have been doing homeschool. Have you participated in any of the Joe Wicks fitness things that have been the massive craze over there?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, can I just give you a hint? Don't try because I nearly died.
Yeah, I've heard how hard they are, and I thought, no, I'm not going to bother with that.
Has there been anything that you have, you hear about people in lockdown who like I said, we only had a very short amount of time, but people getting their sourdough starters going or, learning a new fitness or learning a new language or, that kind of thing. Have you had any lockdown projects that you've, started and anything like that?
Oh, I mean, I've started loads.
Woman after my own heart.
I've had, the best intentions to do all sorts of things. I thought at the start of this, oh, my house will be immaculate. I'll do all these jobs that you never get round to doing, decorating. I've done none of that, and the house
Perfect.
pretty much still looks the same. Um, but I have started, yeah, we've started a few things. I've tried knitting, embroidery, done like lots of cooking things.
Did you do
Not
any
none
of
of
the
them are
cooking?
sure. Hmm?
Did you do any of the cooking or did you just buy the ingredients and the things that you need in order to do it?
Oh no, I did do the cooking, but probably only once or twice.
Oh, well,
So, you know,
that's twice. I'd call that a win.
yeah. Started lots of fitness programs. I did manage one for around 4 weeks, which was good, but then yeah, motivation is hard to maintain.
Well, I mean, we hear about seasonal affective disorder in the UK as it is because of the lack of sunlight that you have, and obviously, and and I really struggled with it when we were over in the UK a couple of years ago, sort of going, it's pitch black, it must be time for my kids to be in bed, and then you'd look at the clock and go, well, it's 3:30, or it's 4 o'clock kind of thing. Okay, we've probably got a couple of hours where we could do something, but that there isn't much sunlight, and then when you're not locked inside, but when you're limited with what you can do anyway, do you think that was that you were hit harder and the social isolation impacted people more?
So yeah, winter for me was really difficult because I was stuck inside the whole time. I actually so I was feeling really tired, and I had some blood tests, and I'd actually got a vitamin D deficiency. So I had to
Ah,
start taking vitamin D. But the issue was that when you look at, even if you're stuck in and you're desperate to get out, when you look outside and it's dark and it's raining and it's cold, I had, no desire whatsoever to go and have a walk around, the block or whatever. So it was really hard just to keep motivated and actually yeah, to keep healthy really. And again, every day I'd be like, right, in my dinner time today, I'm going to move away from the computer screen and I'm going to go outside for half an hour. But
yeah.
again, that probably lasted a few weeks. And then I was like, oh, I just can't be bothered now. I just want to sit and, I don't know, watch telly for half an hour before starting back at work. So he was going from one screen to another, really.
Yeah. And so, very important question now. Did you find yourself watching a lot of Netflix? And if so, do you have any suggestions or recommendations?
Give you loads. I
Fantastic,
have
because I'm
watched
always after a
so
good recommendation.
I have watched so much TV. I'm watching Homeland at the minute, which is really good.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the thing is, I think the call of Netflix is a bit stronger than the call of going outside for a walk, especially when, your temperatures do get quite cold.
Mm. Yeah, and when I finish work at 5 o'clock, it's pitch black.
Yeah, and often raining.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, here, if it's less than, don't laugh at me, but if it's less than sort of 24, I'm freezing and I'm rugged up and I've got my hoodie on and my big, thick, woolly socks on or a ski parka or something like that. And, sometimes you're at -5 or -10. That doesn't work for me, Charlotte.
I mean, 24 degrees is like the height of our summer, Emma.
Yeah. I
That's
struggle.
really hot. That's like we can't sleep at night. It's very uncomfortable. We've got fans on, you know, we're in shorts and t-shirt.
No, I've got my winter quilt. So, yeah, no, I'm not going to cope with your minus whatever it is. So, with all the things that kind of happened over the lockdown, what did you miss the most, or what have you missed the most?
Socializing with friends and family, it was really difficult not seeing friends. I can remember the first time that we was allowed to meet up was basically we could meet with one person and it was outdoors and at a 2 meter distance. So, the first time that I met up with friends and we'd go and sit in a park, just take the picnic blankets, you'd have been freezing. So you'd have probably had your pajamas on. It was springtime, I think.
Yeah, I'd have come in a sleeping bag. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I miss. It's just the normal things that you take for granted, and I think the sad thing is that we have come to accept this as a bit of a new normal, really,
Are you
and
sick of hearing
it's
that?
quite strange. It's quite strange going back out now and doing normal things. It's really nice, but then it was like yesterday. I caught the train to meet some friends in Birmingham, and feeling quite anxious about getting the train and things. I was like, oh God, I've not done this in so long. I like, where do I go and what do I do?
Well, going back, to last year, we had a short kind of lockdown thing, and there was this big push, and everywhere you look, there's posters saying, how to sneeze and make sure you wash your hands, and have you got a temperature, have you been outside of the country, that kind of thing. And I went to a hardware shop with my dad, and I got myself really anxious. So there was hand sanitizer at the door, and I thought, I'm not touching that. Where do you think all the germs are? They're on the top of that hand sanitizer. I'm not touching it. And so I didn't want to put hand sanitizer on. I made the person who was at the door pump it because I didn't want to touch it. And then, and before this, I'd been like, oh, this is just ridiculous. Like, that we have to do all of this. And then we're walking around the hardware shop, and my dad was touching everything. I'm like, could you just stop touching things, okay? And I could feel myself starting to panic because he's touching everything. And we've got this, you kind of drummed into you that there's germs everywhere. And I'd never considered that there's germs everywhere. Yes, you wash your hands and good hand hygiene and cooking hygiene and all of that kind of stuff. But just this, panic over germs are everywhere and they're going to get you. And I imagine that after 15, 16 months, that must be really difficult getting on the train and thinking, well, how many people have touched that pole on the train and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's really hard. When you were saying that, it was, I was just thinking back to the supermarkets and when people get fresh products and stuff, having to leave them for 2 days before touching them again to make sure that nothing was on them and nothing had stayed.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Odd.
I mean, we had it here where, and I just, things just don't make sense. So the checkout operators, they could scan all of your items, but they weren't allowed to put it in a bag for you because putting it in a bag meant that they had to touch the item. Like, they've just scanned it, for heaven's sake, not to mention how many people have touched it, getting it on the shelf and all of that kind of stuff. But now the checkout operator can't put it in a bag because that's too much of a risk. What? So just insane. But we didn't have to leave our food for 2 days before we could eat it, thank goodness.
Okay. Yeah, there's been some really, odd things, I guess. Just strange. Yeah, I suppose like I'm just thinking of one example, like I can go to the pub and I can meet up with loads of people now, but I couldn't go to university face to face in a socially distanced room. And you think, oh, how does that work? Like,
Yeah.
How is that right?
Yeah, my cousin over here works on the mine site, so he's fly in, fly out. And he was just suggesting that perhaps it's a little bit odd that he can sit 10 centimetres away from somebody on a plane, and yet when the baggage comes out on the baggage carousel, it has to be 3 metres apart. So his bag actually has more personal space than he does. So, like, why is it that we can sit shoulder to shoulder, like bum cheeks literally rubbing against each other on the plane seat, but that you can't, you need to have 3 meters between bags so that you don't get too close to each other when you're getting stuff off the baggage carousel. Like,
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, if you've been on a plane with someone,
yeah, that's it. Breathing recycled air. I reckon we could probably get our luggage off the carousel. But yeah, there's so many crazy things. It's just, yeah, it's interesting. But what do you think has surprised you the most about lockdown? Like, was there anything that you thought, actually, I'm really quite enjoying this particular aspect of it, or, something that you weren't expecting from lockdown?
I'm trying to think of any positives.
I really appreciated that when I do the Zoom meetings, half the time I'm still in my pajama bottoms.
That's true. Yeah, it's nice that I don't have to wear, work clothes to go to work. I can just get up out of bed and, yeah, basically just go in whatever I want to go in.
Yeah, especially with telephone, that's it. It's not even like Zoom where they can see you at all.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good. I don't miss the commute to work. It used to take me, well, an hour in the morning, an hour at night to get home. So I definitely don't miss that. That's really good. And it has been, there have been some nice things. I don't know, like, it's nice sometimes to just be a bit quieter. I suppose, like, every week, my calendar's usually booked, like, doing things. So it was nice just coming home. Well,
not coming home.
Yeah. Ash coming home and, yeah, just spending time together. And we've done a lot of online quizzes. That became a family thing. So every Thursday we'd do the, like, I don't know, it was on Zoom. It was Jay's pub quiz. So that was quite nice.
I thought you meant things like, which Disney princess are you, and that kind of online quiz.
No, it's more general knowledge.
Ah, shame.
Where's this Disney princess quiz? This sounds great.
Oh, they're the ones that pop up on social media. So, you just scrolling through and it's, yeah, that kind of thing. So definitely. What percentage insane are you? It's normally like 3,000% insane. Well, when I do it is anyway. But, might be something to that.
There have been some positives, and it's not all been bad. It's just been very, very different.
Yeah. Did you create a list of places that you wanted to go to when things open back up?
It's getting really busy now because we're not doing new things. We're doing things that got cancelled last year. So we're having to book in all the things that we couldn't do.
Yeah.
So we're doing all them kind of things. But it will be really nice when we can go abroad again. But I don't know
when that's going to be.
It will definitely not be this year. But I'm hoping that next year we can go on honeymoon.
Oh, yeah. So, it's tricky. Are places open, are hotels open in the UK?
Yeah, so everything's reopened for us to go away, but you just can't, everything's booked up.
Ah, right.
Everything's booked up, but everything's really, really expensive.
Yeah. Oh, you might have to camp in the back garden. Well, you don't have much of a back garden. You might have to...
I'll have to go around to Dad's and pitch a tent. We was quite lucky, actually. We went away 3 weeks ago to the Lake District, and we'd actually booked that before we knew that lockdown was easing. So we just picked a date and went, let's just hope for the best, that actually might be open then. And if not, again, like I said, the cancellation policies are in place now. You can just move it.
Yeah.
So we was really lucky because we actually managed to do it. I think it was only 2 weeks before we was due to go that things reopened.
Ah, perfect. Oh, that must
But
have
that was,
been really great timing that, yeah, everything reopened. You're like, oh, well, sweet, we've got a holiday booked.
well, yeah, because then as soon as they released the roadmap to recovery, which like set out the dates of when everything was going to happen, everything got booked up.
Yeah. So are you tempted to book now to try and see, or is it possible to book now to try and see if you can have a couple of nights in a hotel for your honeymoon after your wedding that you've got booked, if it all goes ahead?
Yeah, I think we are doing something in England, but yeah, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah. Oh, so any other thoughts on what it's been like living through, I guess, what's going to be, it's going to go down in history books as an unusual time in history, isn't it?
I mean, I guess it's yeah, it's come in peaks really for me. I've had times where I've been like, oh no, this is okay, I can manage this, it's fine, to literally climbing up the walls going, I'm in a prison cell here, I can't stand it any longer, it's horrible. To then going back down to actually, it's okay, you've just got to get on with it, that kind of mentality. So it's just been it's been very challenging, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of been interesting because speaking to people in the UK, for us, the idea of everything being locked down the way that you were, I can't get my head around it. And then, it almost feels a bit like, the company line of, no, we've just got to get on with it and we've just got to get through it. You think, yeah, but what's it actually like in reality? And so it's interesting to hear you going, well, yeah, there are times when you think, yes, we can do this, and times where you think someone's going to die. So, and, I was speaking to a cousin whose grandson tested positive for COVID, and they all lived together. And he said that the little boy was fine, but having 5 of them locked in the house together with, and it's, really quite a small house, not being able to get out of that house, he did think that, he may be arrested for some kind of some kind of crime against some member of his family being locked in such a small confined space for such a length of time. No one else caught it, but that wasn't the biggest risk, really.
That was pretty low down, the COVID. Yeah, and as I say, I guess the thing is, it is what it is. We haven't had any choice.
Yeah.
So if we was for the whole time, for me, if I was like for the whole time, I can't stand this, I can't bear this,
Yeah.
it would have been so much harder because there's nothing we can do. We've just got to style it out, really.
Yeah, that's it. Were there any...
And that is my apps. Honestly, I can't tell you how many times a day I say this. I need a t-shirt making with it. It is what it is. I say it for everything.
How many times a day do you think, I don't believe this, but I'm saying it anyway? If what is it? I learn what I believe when I hear myself talk. I'm saying it anyway.
Yeah. But no, it has been really, really tough. But it does make you, I've got to say, I appreciate things so much more now. Like stuff that we just take for granted, like meeting with family, going for a meal at someone's house.
Yeah.
Going out for food.
Because even that, at the moment, you're still limited with the number of people you can, you're still limited with only 6 people in the house. Is that right? If you go to someone's house and 2 households?
I think it's 2 households. Oh, this is really bad. I don't know.
Do you know what? I only know because I quickly Googled the Nottingham COVID restrictions before we got on this call.
No, I think, I think it's 6. It's really difficult because this is another thing. Things change all the time.
Yeah.
We've had so many different things and so many different rules to follow. It's really hard to go, oh, yeah, this is what it is now. Especially when it was like for different areas.
Yeah.
I was completely lost by it. But yeah, I guess what tends to happen is if we do something, we then go, okay, are we allowed to do this? And then you'll look and check what the situation is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I guess that thing of still being limited with, you can't have you can't invite all your friends over and have a potluck dinner or anything like that, because you are still limited to just one household. Or you can't, your brothers live in two different households and your parents live in two different households. You can't all be together for for a family dinner.
I think it'd have to be outside, which is okay. It's a nice 27 degrees today.
Yeah, I'd still have a cardi on, but okay.
I mean, that's rare. From tomorrow, I think it's meant to rain again.
Yeah. Yeah, so a barbecue in the rain, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. And you said that there were times where you've kind of gone, it is what it is, I'm getting through it. And then there were times where you were crawling the walls. Do you think there was anything that was like a common theme with when you felt like, I can't do this anymore?
I don't think there was anything in particular. I think it was mainly in winter where it was just like, we've had this for so long now. I'm absolutely over it. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
It's difficult because obviously with me not going into work, so at the minute, my house, which was this place where you could go and, at the end of the day and just relax and that's it. That's all it's there for.
Yeah.
It has become my workplace. It's become my university. It's become where I do my counselling sessions. It became where I socialised. It was literally everything was here, and that was it. So it got to a point where I was just thinking, I don't want to be sat here anymore. I want to do.
But at the same time, I don't
else.
actually want to go outside either.
Yeah, I don't want to go out walking because it's raining and it's dark. I just want to do something that's normal. I want to go back to work, or I want to go.
And what is that saying? If if you kind of think, I've had enough of this, but I want to go back to work now. Like what is that saying?
I have said that so many times. I always thought that I'd really like to work from home. I absolutely do not. That is, And I don't know if it would have been different if you'd just have been working from home, but everything else
was fine. Yeah.
Fine, because you had that respite from being here. But I think because everything's contained in this, one room, it's just really, really tough.
Yeah. And how did you go with switching off between, work time and home time? Did you find that work time bled into being at home? Like, was it easy to shut off in between?
Not really, because, I've got all my equipment here in the house. It's so easy just to walk past and go, oh, I'm going to check my emails, or, oh, I can see that my landline is beeping with a message, or actually I'll just do this and then I don't have to do that in the morning. And it's just, it's hard to switch off when it's all here, really.
Yeah. And did that cause any issues with, with your partner, with Ash? With I've talked to friends who are going, because of the mines over here, a lot of people are still working from home because the mines are being quite cautious. And so, then they're finding that their partners are now working, instead of going to work for X number of hours, they're now starting 2 hours earlier, but still going and doing that, checking their emails, or just making this quick call. And, so I know quite a few partners who are kind of going like, seriously, we need to try and work out how you're going to leave work at work, shut the office door and that kind of thing. But how did that cause any issues with Ash with that way?
Not really, because Ash, he comes home a lot later than me. So then
he's still got the commute.
It's really easy to continue doing because he's not there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And to be honest, I think if I started going at 10 o'clock at night, he'd be, oh, I can watch what I want on telly now, and I'm not having to sit and watch Desperate Housewives or something.
Yeah, that's it. And because it's not like you can go anywhere else anyway, so it's not like it's interfering with your social life, is it?
That is very, very true. Yeah.
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 Oh, dear. So any other thoughts on, for people who might be struggling, or people who don't have any concept of what it's like, any final thoughts on what living through lockdown's been like?
I suppose just being thankful, really, that it could be so much worse, couldn't it? And I think that's the thing that stayed with me through all of this, when I thought, oh, I'm fed up with this. I can't go to uni, or I can't go out. And then I think about the people who, have lost their parents in this, or, friends and siblings. And yeah, we're really lucky, actually. And all my family are, we haven't lost anyone, and, we have managed to all keep safe in it. So as much as I've been fed up and I've moaned about the things like, as I say, not having normality and not having
No
my
pasta
life
or tricky.
how it should be, yeah. I'm actually really lucky. So yeah.
And yeah, that's it. I think it's trying to keep things in perspective, isn't it? And it's been difficult for us here to see that perspective, because, like I said, we haven't experienced it. And I think, yeah, what you see on the news, it's hard to know what to believe. I think because there's so much sensationalism, we really don't know what's happening. So
and that's been the same for us, to be fair, Emma. There's been so many things out there and so many stories that you think, is that true, isn't it? And it's really hard, and I think it's really divided people.
Yeah.
There's the people who, have worked from home, and the people who haven't, and the resentfulness of that. People who've been key workers, who've been in the hospitals and things. I'm just thinking of, how much it's had. People who have the vaccine and people who've chosen not to. It has caused a lot of conflict.
Yeah. Do you see that conflict starting to resolve, or do you just see it growing as we try and move out of all the restrictions and back to some sort of sense of normality?
I think it depends how it goes next. I think if things continue to move forward and things continue to go back to normal, that will hopefully start to resolve. But I think if things stay as they are, or things get worse again, I think it's only going to increase, really.
Yeah. No, we are definitely experiencing here with the different schools of thought on it, and it is, and I think there's kind of this us and them mentality, which is, it's growing. I think we need to try and find a way that we can bring people together, rather than trying to find ways that we can not divide and conquer, but certainly divide and pit people against each other. So it would be much better to try and find ways that we can bring people together, and find ways that we, what we have in common, rather than what's separating people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well here, it all depends on what the rules are going to be next, because, there's talk about things like having COVID passports for the vaccines, and, for people who have made the decision not to have that, that's it's isolating, isn't it?
Yeah, no, most definitely. And there's been talk of that over here as well, and it definitely is isolating, and that is definitely divisive between, the two schools of thought on that. So it's really is quite terrible, I think. And, is it going to be compulsory? Can you make it compulsory? Where there's risk, there needs to be choice, but then, then there's kind of this guilt that people should put other people first, and what does that mean? And it's just, you can just go round and round in circles all day with all of that stuff. So
is the vaccine starting to be rolled out in Australia now?
It is, yeah. So, and that's hard to know as well, as I say, not in the same kind of magnitude that it is in the UK, but we don't know whether or not what we're seeing is actually accurate. So, but yeah, it's definitely being portrayed as being a good uptake over in the UK. So, but it's interesting to hear that you do have people in both schools of thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences and sharing your thoughts and everything that's happened over the past, I'm going to say 15 months. I didn't actually count on my fingers how many months it has been since March. So I'm going with 15. But it feels like a long time anyway. Thanks for sharing.
Lost track of months.
Yeah, I bet you have. And I do feel like we're going, okay, well, 2020, we just need 2020 to be over, and 2021, this is going to be our year. And then 2021 was kind of like, you know, hold my beer kind of thing. I'm going to show you. Yeah, and it's just, it seems to be flying by, and I don't know, we just don't know what tomorrow's going to bring it anyway. And I think that's what's been tricky over here as well, that everything was just going along really well, and then all of a sudden, bang, we had a couple of positive cases, nothing compared to what was in the UK, but a couple of positive cases. And then the whole of, Perth Metro, just felt like the whole of WA. So Perth Metro, then just went into lockdown, but it was overnight. So it's that kind of uncertainty of what's going to happen tomorrow, and we don't know. And so everyone's kind of on tenterhooks waiting to find out what's going to happen. And but then we see the other thing where you guys have been closed down for quite some time and think, well, maybe being on tenterhooks isn't so bad, actually.
You get given the notice. It's not a long notice, but it's definitely more than 24 hours. But yeah, Ash just seems to last that little bit longer.
Yeah. That's it. Well, so for me, that's what I found really difficult at the start of this year. Was we had our kids were supposed to be going back to school, and then there were a couple of positive cases, and then so we went into lockdown, and they go, okay, well, it's 7 days, but because we'd seen what had happened in the UK, I was kind of going, oh, it's not just going to be 7 days, is it? It's going, because it was supposed to be a UK variant, and it's going to be so much longer, and just that uncertainty of what was going to happen. And then we're like, oh, no, actually, it is just, okay, well, kids are back to school and we're back to work, and okay, right, it was just 7 days. So, yeah, I'm definitely not complaining about the 7 days and then the 3 days comparatively. So, yeah. But, yeah, thank you very much for sharing all of your experiences. I very much appreciate you giving up your time on a Sunday afternoon to share all this with us. Thanks so much for joining me. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of A Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. For more information on the services we offer, head to whws.org.au or Women's Health and Wellbeing Services on YouTube and social media. Looking forward to the next episode where we uncover the hidden world of women.